bilingual, or do you want it to
Yes,
be
yes,
in English
absolutely.
only? Okay, okay.
So this is a आज का जो सेशन आज का जो दिन है वो तो हमने रखा ही
है ही उर्दू पे।
लैंग्वेजेस का या इट्स बाइलिंगुअल सो वी गॉट सेशन ऑन बंगाली जिसमें बंगाली में भी बात हो रही है थोड़ी बहुत हुई उसमें एंड यू नो वी Seraiki and Punjabi and Malayalam so apart from Urdu so
Super,
yeah
super,
yeah
super.
all
So
right so
you're
we're
Really.
live now.
yeah. Hello and welcome everyone to Ananke's Festival of Literature. It is an absolute delight and honor to have this amazing conversation with somebody who is so inspiring. Hoori Nurani, welcome.
Thank you so much, Sabine. I'm delighted to be on this festival with you and Naima and all the other very, the fantastic other ladies involved.
Thank you so much. So, a little bit about, and I had pulled up, oh, yeah. So, a little bit about Hoori Nurani. Hoori Nurani runs the Karachi based publishing house Maktaba-e-Danial, which she inherited from her late father, Malik Nurani. She holds a master's degree in philology, or if I'm pronouncing philology,
Yeah.
with a major in Russian and world literature from the People's Friendship University in Moscow. Maktabai Danial is known for having published renowned South Asian authors like Mushtaq Ahmad, Yusfi, Faiz Ahmad Faiz, Iftikhar Arif, Ahmida Riaz, Kurutulain Haider, Gulzar. Currently, they are working on a series of translations into Urdu from world literature as well as Pakistani authors writing in English. Miss Noorani is a trained classical dancer. She has also translated Henryk Borokovich's famous play Interview in Buenos Aires from Russian into Urdu. Hoori Noorani and Maktabai Danial have the honor of being the first publishers from Pakistan to be shortlisted for the 2020 IPA, International Publishers Association Prix Voltaire, and apologies for the pronunciation, an award recognizing exemplary courage in upholding the freedom to publish and in enabling others to exercise their right to freedom of expression. So, welcome, Hoori.
Thank you so much.
And let's just, dive into it. I wanted to know, about your journey, your legacy. So let's begin with your, literary journey.
So my literary journey, well, I did my schooling in Karachi from the Karachi Grammar School. I did my O levels and A levels, always having an interest in literature, always being an avid reader. So that, just led me to choose to go into that field and to, and I, because of my family background, had always been, interested in progressive literature, Russian literature, first and foremost. And I had already read a lot of it. And so I chose to go to Moscow for my higher education. This was 1977. And I wanted to do my master's in literature, but the faculty was the Faculty of Philology, which is the science of linguistics. I know it's a little bit of a tongue twister to say philology, but under that faculty also came the Faculty of Literature, Russian literature, world literature. So yeah, that's basically my the journey of my education. I did my master's. I did 1 year of, well, everyone had to do 1 year of the Russian language. And then, of course, we joined other Russian students and students from all the other republics of what at that time was the Soviet Union. and everyone was studying in the same language, in the Russian language. So interestingly enough, I also read much of world literature, which I had already read in English, but then I read it in Russian because that made it easier to take exams and to discuss. And yeah, so it was a wonderful 6 years. It was, I still say those were the best years of my life in terms of not only education, but in terms of meeting people from different parts of the world. The university that I studied from was called the Friendship University, but it was named after Patrice Lumumba, the freedom fighter, the African freedom fighter. And it was basically a university for Latin American, African, and Asian students, as well as students from all over the Soviet Union. So it was just such a wonderful, mix of people and cultures and languages and backgrounds, and which was by itself another education by itself. So yeah, those were the sort of formative years of my life.
So, first reading, Russian literature in English, because I'm intrigued now, because we've
Mhm.
been over the past several years, this festival has focused on, translations and language. That has been a very big part of what we've been doing, and I'm intrigued, reading in English and then in Russian. Uh, how was the experience? And in terms of translation and in terms of original work, uh, is there a difference, that migration of from of literature from one language to another, if you reflect on that?
Um, Well, yes, of course, always something gets lost in translation, right? When you convert from one language to another, however good the translation is, there is always some nuance that is lost, some nuance that is connected to the culture, the cultural difference, or the difference in perception of language is always lost in translation, as you can say. Um, but however, there have been some wonderful translations in Urdu as well as English from Russian literature. Of course, reading Russian literature in Russian was an out of the world experience for me, and especially living in Russia and experiencing that background, that culture, that history made it all the more, relevant for me. So yeah, I would think that it's just another experience to be able to read in the original language. You know.
And I also wanted to know, because you're working in translations, and uh, what kind of, first, uh, I'd like you to compare the times then and the appetite of the Pakistani readers as compared to today. Where do we stand when it comes to, especially when it comes to world literature, or literature beyond South Asia? And I'm talking
So
about
yeah.
not just what we're producing or what the world is producing right now. I'm talking about all these amazing names, Pushkin and Dostoevsky and Gogol and Zola and
हाँ, तो
all of
सबीन
these.
दिलचस्पी तो हमेशा रही है. People have always been interested in,
Yeah.
especially certain parts of the world. Like there's always been an interest in Latin American writers. There's always been an interest in Russian writers, of course, French writers. Um, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि वक्त के साथ साथ काफी ज्यादा अब पढ़ा भी जाने लगा है और छपने भी लगा है. There are so many publishers now concentrating on mostly doing translations, big publishers in Pakistan and in India and elsewhere, I think. So up to it's not just a matter of doing, the classics or just doing, Kafka and Marquez and Borges and Kundera. There are a lot more writers that are being, that have piqued the interest of people. Writers from the Arabic world, writers from Iran, writers from, even writers from like our own writers. For a long time, there was a dearth of good translations of our classics or our writers from, the progressive writers or other writers. अब वो भी ज्यादा ट्रांसलेट हो रहे हैं और ज्यादा पढ़े जा रहे हैं और दुनिया भर का और कंटेम्प्रेरी लिटरेचर भी ट्रांसलेट हो रहा है, which is wonderful, which is really wonderful that a book can win a Booker Prize and you find out that, it's something you've just worked on and just translated and are about to publish, which happened with us. We had been working on Han Kang's The Vegetarian, and I had just sent it to press when the Nobel Prize was announced for Han Kang. So it had, of course, won the Man Booker Prize some years back, but it was, I remember just jumping, with joy when I heard that had happened. So a lot more of the world literature is coming into focus. A lot more of it is being translated into Urdu, which is such a happy thing to happen.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. और I'd like you to talk about मकतब दानियाल के बारे में कुछ हमें बताएं.
तो मकतब दानियाल जो है वो तो मेरे वालिद साहब का, इट वाज हिज बेबी. थोड़ा सा मेरा बैकग्राउंड ये है कि मेरे दोनों पेरेंट्स जो हैं come from a background of being involved in progressive liberal politics, being a part of the Communist Party of Pakistan. They actually, after they got married, they in what was then United India, the first one of the first places they lived in was partly a commune of the Communist Party of India. तो वहां से उनकी मुलाकात हुई बहुत सारे प्रोग्रेसिव राइटर्स से, जैसे सज्जाद ज़हीर, जैसे कैफी आज़मी, जैसे अली सरदार जाफरी, डॉक्टर रशीद जहां वगैरह वगैरह, बहुत सारे लोगों से उनकी वहां से दोस्ती बड़ी, सिमते हसन. तो वो दोस्तियां जो थी वो उनको फिर जब पार्टीशन के बाद वो यहाँ आ गए तो वो दोस्तियां बरकरार रही और वो सोच ऑब्वियसली बरकरार रही और वो काम एक सिमत में चल पड़ा. तो मेरे वालिद का जो मेन काम था, जो मेन बिजनेस था, दैट वाज लॉ बुक्स. So after an initial few years of struggling to, work or build something in Pakistan vis-a-vis work, he started the Pakistan Law House, which was publishing, mostly importing law books from England and India, and also publishing some books. लेकिन उनका जो झुकाव था, उनका जो इंटरेस्ट था, जो उनका क्या कहें इश्क था, वो उर्दू अदब से था और ख़ासकर रोशन ख्याल अदब से था. तो 1967 में उन्होंने मकतब दानियाल की बुनियाद डाली और उनकी कोशिश ये थी कि द बुक्स शुड बी सब्सिडाइज्ड and available, and we should publish those books which at that time nobody else was ready to publish. तो यूं सबसे पहली किताब जो शाये की वो तो उजरा दयार थी, शायद अहमद दहलवी की. लेकिन फिर जिन किताबों से हम जाने जाते हैं वो सिमते हसन साहब की सारी किताबें हैं. जो उस जमाने में तो कोई नहीं शाया करना चाहता था, आज हर पब्लिशर की ख्वाहिश है कि वो कर सके। उसी तरह से सज्जाद जहीर, क्योंकि उनसे दोस्ती थी, वो जब पाकिस्तान में वो कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी का काम संभालने आए इधर, तो अंडरग्राउंड भी हमारे घर में रहे। बहुत सारे कम्युनिस्ट लीडर्स हमारे घर में अंडरग्राउंड रहे। मैं तो मुझे तो शायद मेरी 58 की पैदाइश है, तो कुछ से तो मुझे कुछ मुझे बिल्कुल याद नहीं है, भाइयों को याद है। लेकिन इतने किस्से सुने हैं कि मुझे लगता है कि मैंने भी उनको देखा, और मैं भी ये सब बातें मैंने फर्स्ट हैंड एक्सपीरियंस की है। हसन नासिर के बारे में, या सज्जाद जहीर बन्ने भाई जिनको वो कहते थे, उनके बारे में। तो ये बैकग्राउंड था मकतब दानियाल का। और मकतब दानियाल जो था वो एक इम्प्रिंट था, जो पब्लिशिंग हाउस था, जो अब भी हमारा फर्म का नाम है, वो पाकिस्तान पब्लिशिंग हाउस है। सो ही हैड पाकिस्तान लॉ हाउस एंड देन ही हैड पाकिस्तान पब्लिशिंग हाउस, और उसकी इम्प्रिंट थी मकतब दानियाल। तो पाकिस्तान पब्लिशिंग हाउस के तहत वो कुछ ब्रिटिश पब्लिशर्स को यहाँ रिप्रेजेंट करते थे, जैसे कैम्ब्रिज यूनिवर्सिटी प्रेस और दूसरे बड़े 2-3 प्रेस थे। और उनसे जो उनको मिलता था कमीशन ऑन सेल्स, उससे वो सब्सिडाइज करते थे उर्दू पब्लिशिंग को, टू मेक इट एक्सेसिबल एंड चीपर। एंड खैर उस जमाने में किताबें वैसे भी इतनी महंगी नहीं थी। पहले तो कागज भी इतना महंगा नहीं था, जब तक हमारे साथ ईस्ट पाकिस्तान का था। बांग्लादेश जब बन गया उसके बाद तो अब तक ये है कि हम इम्पोर्टेड कागज पर रिलाई करते हैं, और जो लोकल कागज पे प्रोड्यूस होता है वो पल्प उसका बाहर से आता है। तो कागज ही इतना महंगा है यहाँ कि किताबें सस्ती होने का तो सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता है पाकिस्तान में। तो तो इस तरह ये पब्लिशिंग हाउस शुरू हुआ। और एक बहुत ही अच्छी लिस्ट मेरे वालिद ने डेवलप की, जिसमें सिब्ते हसन, फैज़ अहमद फैज़, इब्ने इंशा, अली सरदार जाफरी, कैफी आजमी, सजाद जहीर की सारी किताबें। फिर उसके बाद आहिस्ता आहिस्ता इफ्तिखार आरिफ, हबीब जालिब, फहमीदा रियाज, कुरतुलैन हैदर साहिबा, जिलानी बानो साहिबा, ये सब ये लिस्ट मुझे विरसे में मिली। तो एक एक इतना शानदार विरसा पहले ही मुझे मिल गया। लेकिन मेरे वालिद का इंतकाल 1986 87 में हुआ। 86 में वो बीमार पड़े, 87 में उनका इंतकाल हुआ। और उस वक्त वो जो एजेंसीज थी उनके पास, जिनकी वजह से वो सब्सिडाइज करते थे किताबें, वो एजेंसीज उनकी चली गई। जाहिर है वो जो पब्लिशर्स थे उनको मालूम हुआ कि ही वाज अनवेल फॉर अ होल ईयर बिफोर हिज डेथ। तो जाहिर है वो सिलसिला नहीं रहा। तो मुझे अब भी याद है कि उन्होंने in his last days he said to me that you will have to close down, and I had just joined, I had just come back from studying abroad, and I had only just begun to work with him. So he said that you will not be able to sustain it, and you will have to close it down. And I don't know, something just played on my mind that I cannot let this go. I jaise bhi ho, I have to make it work. So I persevered in very difficult circumstances with very little finances. To this day, we are a very small independent publishing house that publishes some very big authors. And now I'm happy to say that I have probably run it for a much longer period than my father was able to during his lifetime. So, and, the work that was done after his death was mainly with writers such as Kurutulain Haider Sahib. I had just started, working with my father, but later I met her. I met Jilani Bano. But of course, it was the goodwill that they had towards my father and the name that he had established, which helped me establish Maktaba Danyal and work with those same writers and carry on that work of producing, progressive liberal literature.
So I'll start with one thing. There's a term somebody used during this festival, and she said, small but mighty. So that's what Maktabai Danyal is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's a reason why I'm speaking in English right now, because I want you to speak about Sibte Hassan. ये वो नाम था जो कि हमारे घर में भी मेरे वालिद साहब इन्हीं चीज़ों से क्योंकि वाबस्ता मेरे माय ग्रैंडफादर एंड माय फादर, तो सिब्ते हसन साहब, इनके बारे में आई वांट द ग्लोबल ऑडियंस टू नो दीज जायंट्स इन आवर मिडस्ट. तो उनके बारे में थोड़ा सा, हसन नासिर, इनके बारे में इफ यू कुड शेयर योर थॉट्स.
Yes, so Hassan Nasir, as we say, was the first revolutionary to be tortured and murdered in the fort of Lahore, and he was from Hyderabad, Dakkan, from a very well-to-do family of Hyderabad, Dakkan, but he got involved with the progressive movement with the Communist Party and moved to Pakistan to establish the Communist Party of Pakistan. And very early on, he was arrested and tortured, and later he died in captivity. And to this day, we don't know where he is buried, because when his mother came from India to take the body of to see the body of her son, the grave which they showed her and the body that they showed her, she said it couldn't be my son, because apparently Hassan Nasir was a very, very tall man, and that just wasn't the body of her son. So, I mean, these are things that have been told to me by my parents. I don't my brothers call him Nasir Mamu, so I call him Nasir Mamu. But I have no recollection of Nasir Mamu. Apparently I was less than 2 years old when he was murdered. Similarly, Sajjad Zahir also came from India to manage the affairs of the Communist Party of Pakistan, and eventually had to leave. But Sibte Hassan was from, I think he was from, if I'm not mistaken, he was from Lucknow, but I think he lived in Hyderabad also. And he has a beautiful book called Sher-e-Nigara, which is about Hyderabad, Dakkan. He was also very close to Makhdoom Mohyuddin, and of course to all the other writers of the progressive writers movement. He was also already a part of the progressive writers movement when he migrated to Pakistan. Sibte Hassan's main contribution is the 5 wonderful books he wrote. Mazi Ke Mazar, which is a history of ancient civilizations and how the concept of God and religion.
Your voice is breaking a bit.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Gigi, I can hear you. Gigi, I can hear you.
So I was saying that Sibte Hassan's main contribution is the wonderful 5 books he wrote.
Wait, it's breaking again.
No, God, I can hear you fine.
Okay, if you can
should I
begin again about Sibte Hassan?
Ji. So Sibte Hassan was mainly his main contribution is the 5 wonderful books he wrote. One is Mazi Ke Mazar, which is about ancient civilizations, that how the concept of God and religion and all evolved over the ages. Musa Se Marx Tak, which is a history from Moses till Karl Marx and beyond. And this third book is Pakistan Mein Tehzeeb Ka Irtiqa, about Pakistani culture and what Pakistani culture is and what we mean by it, because there was a whole discussion around it, which drew parallels with Islamic culture, and whether Islam is Pakistan's culture or whether culture is something separate from religion, and what culture means and what Pakistani culture is and how it is connected to the Indus Valley civilization, and not something which started with the conquest of Muhammad bin Qasim, and then there was his book called Naveed Fikr, which is about society, democratic ideals in society, and it has a chapter on Iqbal, and it's basically about secularism and what secularism is. And the fifth book was about Iran and the revolution in Iran. So these were the five main books. And then he wrote a book called The Battle of Ideas in Pakistan, which again is a sort of, it encompasses what he wrote in Pakistan Mein Tehzeeb Ka Irtiqa and Naveed Fikr, but in English. So those were his articles in English. And then after his death, a lot of his uncompiled, unpublished work was put together by Dr. Jafar Ahmed, so after that, we published a number of books of Sibte Hassan, which have been compiled by Dr. Jafar Ahmed. So, but my relationship, of course, with Sibte Hassan was because he was someone who was so close to my father. He was Sibte uncle for me, and he was, someone I saw growing up, someone who I remember sitting down with for my first study circle when I was very young. And the first question he asked us was, we were 3 or 4 of us, all in our very early teens, very young. And he said, what is matter? And we were all like, oh, matter is color, matter is this, matter is that. And then, how it evolved, how he, took that study circle. So, and then of course I left for my studies. When I came back, it was 1983, and there were two things which were that year was, I think it was the year of Marx's centenary or something like that. So there were preparations for that going on with Sibte Hassan and everyone involved, and meetings taking place in our house. And shortly after that was the Golden Jubilee of the Progressive Writers Movement, which we celebrated in Pakistan as well as in India. And Sibte uncle went to India for the celebrations. He was invited, and sadly he passed away over there during that event. So his body was brought back by Noor Zahir, Sajjad Zahir's daughter. And then she wrote a wonderful sort of eulogy that was about, the daughters of Faiz and Sibte Hassan, and, how the tradition and the legacy carries on. So, and we have also, of course, published Noor Zahir. We've recently published her short stories. So that legacy carries on in the next generation in that way also. So yes, that was shortly about, who Sibte Hassan was.
I think we need to have another session where we talk about the legacy being carried, carried forward by, well, I'm not being, not talking about gender, but yes, by women in the family.
Yes. Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
But you see, Faiz Saab had 2 daughters.
Ji.
He had no sons. And Sibte Hassan had 1 daughter, no son.
Okay.
And Sajjad Zahir had daughters also.
All right. So it won't be fair.
So yes.
Yeah. But you have brothers, and they might
I have
be,
brothers,
yeah,
yes. I have brothers,
yeah.
They are of course, very much politically aware and carry the same
Yeah.
ideas. One of my brothers has been very involved with the Citizens Foundation in Pakistan.
Okay.
He's worked as the founder of that of the Citizens Foundation in the USA, and
Okay.
he's involved in education and all that.
Okay.
So in some way or the other, they are contributing to that.
Absolutely. Citizen
Maybe not.
Foundation.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Because we work with citizen, as in, there's some things that we do. Uh, there are uh, fellows that we
Mm.
onboard for our Empower Fellowship program. So, we collaborate on and off with Citizen Foundation, and we're digressing, but,
Well,
it's an amazing.
interestingly, Maktab Danial is named after my brother Danial.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, that's amazing.
He finds
So,
that very amusing when people. He says, I meet people and they tell me, "Oh, you're Hoori's brother." I'm really tickled by the thought that my brothers are so proud of me and they enjoy being known as
yeah,
my brothers
yeah.
instead of
No,
holding
but
grudges about
you know,
that.
it is something to be proud of. Not just उस legacy को आगे बढ़ाना, लेकिन उस विजन के साथ, और उसको उस विजन को जो है उसको भी going beyond that. So that is something to be really proud of.
Right.
वो सोच जो शुरू हुई है कि किताबों को लोगों के लिए जो है कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव होना चाहिए, उस सोच के साथ, ताकि वो एक्सेसिबल हो और लोगों को मौका मिले पढ़ने का। वो वहाँ
Mm.
से जब सोच शुरू होती है तो वो और उसको आगे बढ़ाना इज क्वाइट अ फीट। और स्पेशली उन किताबों की हम बात कर रहे हैं, जो किताबें जो हैं स्पेशली ज़िया के ज़माने में जला दी जाती थी। मेरे वालिद साहब भी एक उन्होंने भी एक बताई हमें किस्से कहानियां, तो हमें भी
Mm.
मिल रहे होते हैं सुनने को। तो वो यही कहते कि पुलिस आई एक शॉप में जहाँ पे प्रोग्रेसिव इसी किस्म की किताबें मिल रही होती थी। तो वो जो है किताब, वो अरेस्ट कर रहा था शॉपकीपर को। तो मेरे वालिद साहब उधर ही थे, उन्होंने कहा कि वो शॉपकीपर ने थोड़ी लिखी है यार, वो जिसने लिखी है उसको जाके पकड़ो। तो वो उस जमाने में बकौल वाले साहब के पुलिस वाले भी, और जो है एक माहौल पुलिस वालों को का नहीं,
Mm.
लेकिन एक माहौल फिर भी शायद थोड़ा आजकल के लिहाज से बेहतर था। आ,
Mm.
का,
सबीन देखें, ये जो है ना, ये लिटरेचर को सबवर्सिव समझना, लिटरेचर को, किताबें तो हमेशा मतलब डिक्टेटर्स की दुश्मन रही हैं, या
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
जहनों का खुलना, या पढ़ा लिखा अवाम होना, ये चीजें तो नहीं जाती हैं in favor of despots. So books have always been targeted over the ages everywhere in the world. हमारे मुल्क में जी specifically coming to our books, Maktab Daniel books, Sibt Hasan's books some of them were banned during Zia Huq's time. But they were banned in specific areas. जैसे मूसा से मार्क्स तक was banned in Balochistan. Naveed Fikr was banned in Balochistan for a while. तो वो इस तरह से था. There was never any aggression towards us. There was never any, there was no midnight knock or anything. Interestingly, that happened many years later in 2020. When we translated Muhammad Hanif's novel,
जी।
A Case of Exploding
सॉरी।
Mangoes. Now, that book had been in existence in English for more than 11 years at that time and had sold thousands of copies everywhere in the world, including Pakistan. It had been translated into multiple languages. The Urdu translation had been lying with another publisher for some years, and finally, when Hanif asked them that why, what do you, if you're not going to publish it, let me know. They said, well, if you change certain things in the book. So he said, I'm not ready to change anything, but it's been available in English for so long. So as Hanif likes to joke, and something which really came true later, which we didn't expect, was that kabhi kabhi der mein samajh aata hai logon ko. So when it was translated into Urdu and we published it in September 2019, and of course it was a book that became an instant bestseller, and that translation, and there were multiple book launches and all. In December, we were sent a defamation notice by Ziaulak Saab's son. And before we could reply to that defamation notice, the book was picked up by the powers that be from our office. And by that time, we had almost sold out the first edition. We had some 200 copies in the office, which they picked up and never returned. Though later, after Hanif tweeted, and his tweet became viral, and they realized that Hanif was an international personality and connected to media internationally, and they sort of took a back foot. They stopped harassing us, which they initially did for the first day or two. They harassed booksellers also. As you said, कि वो booksellers का बेचारों का क्या कसूर है. So, they went to bookshops to pick up the book, and they asked us to provide a list of bookshops, and they harassed my staff. They went to my staff's homes to look for them. They came to my home, did not enter it. So there was that midnight call in 2020. So that book, of course, remains like it's a sore that keeps, it's something that is sad that happened. We are hoping to republish it. Let's see, fingers crossed.
Yes, it's something that I think needs to be published now as well, so that the next generation, they're able to, find joy,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, have you ever considered, uh, yeah, or is it a challenge, translating उर्दू, जैसे सिप्ते हसन साहब की किताब है, उसको अंग्रेजी में ट्रांसलेट करना फॉर ए रीजनल और रीजन में तो फिर थोड़ा सा अभी है, बट गोइंग ग्लोबल.
So Siptaya Saab's books, Noor Saeed was interested in translating, and some other people from India were interested, and also people from Pakistan. A couple of people did ask me. I am not sure if the English translations ever came out in India. In Pakistan, most of those books have been translated into Sindhi um, without permission from us or the family, but we sort of, ignore that because we want the book to be read in the different languages. So we haven't made an issue of that. But I know that Tasneef Haider in India, who has his own YouTube channel, is reading the books out. He's doing audio recordings of the books, which again I think is wonderful. So we at one point talked to Oxford University Press that to take the rights for the English books, because basically we are an Urdu publisher. We have very few books in English. Recently, we have just started, stepping into that publication, into that English publishing side. I think maybe it's the first time that I'm announcing publicly that at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, we will be publishing Mohammed Hanif's new novel, English novel. So,
Oh, that is amazing.
yeah. So at that point, when Noor wrote to us about translating some of his books, we did speak to OUP, but nothing came of it. So I, those books have not been published in English in Pakistan.
Okay, okay. So Seagull Books in India, they're huge when it comes to translation as well. Um, and they do, uh, they have an Arab uh, list, and they have a European list, and not just European, separate unki lists हैं. So uh, would you consider, or do you have that kind of thing, like a
We could, of course. We have recently started collaborating with the Anjuman Taraqi Urdu Hind. We have shared our books with them to publish, and we published some of one or two of their books. We could collaborate, of course, with some other Indian publishers. One of our writers, I think, is going to be in one on your panels on Urdu writers, Samina Nazir. Her books have been picked up by Urdu publishers in India. Kashif Raza's book has been published in India, his novel. So, yes, of course, we could collaborate with Indian publishers or anywhere in the world, of course,
absolutely,
anywhere else in the world.
absolutely. So, talk again, coming back to, if you could tell me more about, literature, the world lit up, जो वर्ल्ड लिटरेचर को जो है वो पाकिस्तान के अंदर ला रहे हैं, उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा.
तो सबीन, हमने ज्यादातर तो शुरू में तो काफी सारा रशियन लिटरेचर की तरफ झुकाव था. But being, of course, an independent publishing house with limited resources, हम बहुत बड़े पैमाने पे तो नहीं कर सकते थे. तो मेरे वालिद के ज़माने में ही उन्होंने एक आध चीज़ ट्रांसलेट करवाई थी. ट्रांसलेट नहीं करवाई थी, बल्कि वो रशियन ट्रांसलेशंस जो थे, जो रशिया में हो चुके थे, प्रोग्रेस पब्लिशर्स के या रादुगा पब्लिशर्स के, उनको. And I see you smiling. I know you have a large library of Progress
Yes.
Publishers books, you were telling me. So वो उनको लेके उन्होंने शाये किया. मिर्जा अशफाक बेग से उनकी दोस्ती थी, उनके ट्रांसलेशंस भी थे रशियन लिटरेचर के. हमने फिर मैंने कमीशन किया था टुगेदर विथ the Soviet center here, not the Friendship Center, but उनका consulate था, but under the consulate उनका जो एक वो था, I think economic वो था wing. So they had sponsored a translation that we wanted to publish of a book on Sindh तारीख के आईने में. तो वो हमने पब्लिश किया. एक गालिब पर किताब थी नतालिया प्रिगारिना की, उसका ट्रांसलेशन उसामा फारूकी साहब ने किया था. इंडिया से उनका ताल्लुक था, वो हमने शाये किया. फिर मेरा ख्याल ऑफ कोर्स इस पे गया कि मेरी लाइब्रेरी में इतनी सारी प्रोग्रेस पब्लिशर्स की किताबें हैं उर्दू में, तो उनको क्यों नहीं किया जाए. तो मैंने चेखव का किया, टॉल्स्टॉय का किया हुआ शाया नहीं हुआ है, कंपोज होके रखा हुआ है, अभी हुआ नहीं है. एक चिंगेज आयतमातुफ का कंपोज होके रखा हुआ है ट्रांसलेशन, वो भी अभी हुआ नहीं है. लेकिन फिर थोड़ा सा मैं आ गई इस पे कि क्यों ना हम तर्जुमा करें. जैसे हनीफ का हमने किया था, तो उस तरह के जो पाकिस्तानी राइटर्स जो अंग्रेजी में लिख रहे हैं, उनमें एक उमर शाहिद हामिद हैं, जिनकी किताबें बहुत कराची सेंट्रिक भी हैं और इधर की पॉलिटिक्स और उससे जुड़ी हुई हैं. तो हमने उनकी किताब द प्रिजनर का तर्जुमा 2 साल पहले शाये किया था, कैदी के नाम से. और अभी रिसेंटली ये जो हैंड कैंग का तर्जुमा हमने किया है, द वेजिटेरियन. तो बहुत ज्यादा तो नहीं है, बहुत थोड़ी बहुत मैं चूजी पिकी भी हूँ कि मैं क्या चीज कर रही हूँ. लेकिन इसी दौर में कुछ पब्लिशर्स बहुत उभर के आए हैं। उनमें से एक जो है गगन और अमर शायद जेलम बुक कॉर्नर के, जो आपके पब्लिशर्स वाले पैनल में भी
जी
होंगे।
बिल्कुल।
और वो उनका भी पब्लिशिंग हाउस उनके वालिद साहब ने शुरू किया था, लेकिन ये लड़कों ने उसका काम काफी आगे बढ़ाया है, और वो बहुत अग्रेसिवली ट्रांसलेशंस में काम कर रहे हैं। तो उन्होंने बहुत रशियन क्लासिक्स का तर्जुमा किया है। उसमें कुछ बहुत अच्छे तर्जुमे हैं, कुछ इतने अच्छे नहीं भी हैं। और वो दूसरे दूसरे इलाकों के तर्जुमे भी कर, दूसरे मुल्कों के राइटर्स के भी कर रहे हैं। बल्कि मार्केस की जो अभी नॉवेल शाया हुई है छोटी वाली, उसका फौरन ही तर्जुमा आ गया जो उन्होंने शाया किया। तो अब ये मतलब ये बहुत, इट्स अ वंडरफुल थिंग दैट a lot of new people have come up in the, not only in the publishing world but also as translators. पहले हमें ट्रांसलेटर्स मुश्किल से हम ढूंढते थे, और कुछ बड़े नाम थे जैसे उमर मेमन साहब। मुझे उमर मेमन साहब के साथ काम करने का मौका मिला, विच वाज एब्सोल्युटली वंडरफुल। हमने 4-5 किताबें उनकी की, कुंडेरा के तर्जुमे, ताहिर बिन जलून के, अमीन मालूफ का, plus his wonderful 3-volume translations of essays from the Paris Review. तो लेकिन अब बहुत अच्छे नए ट्रांसलेटर्स आ गए हैं, जिनमें इनाम नदीम हैं, दूसरे भी हैं। तो वो और अच्छी बात ये भी है कि अब ट्रांसलेशंस के लिए पब्लिशर्स, they're paying for the translation. It used to be that translators were working without getting paid or something, and which is which I would not hold against publishers, because it just adds to the cost of publishing, and already the economics of publishing in Pakistan doesn't make sense, even for us who long prided ourselves in trying to control the prices of books. We can't anymore. It is just absolutely, you know either we sink or we sail with the rest, and price our books accordingly. Because I will talk about this more obviously on the panel on publishing, but there are various factors that affect the price of a book. So but it is good that translators are also more aware of the fact that they should be paid, because translation is no small feat, and publishers are also ready to pay them. So this is something which has recently happened, and also because I guess because recently so many translations are being done in Pakistan. Like when I was amazed because as soon as the Nobel Prize for Han Kang was announced, and of course I immediately also put up on social media that The Vegetarian is going to be available in a week. And there were at least 5 other people who wrote that we have also translated The Vegetarian, and we are also, talking to publishers and all that. Happily, I had actually taken permission from the author and her literary agencies, so we had the copyright for the translation. But that doesn't stop people in India, Pakistan, actually. So yeah, so this is something which this is another aspect of publishing, that of publishing translations, that needs to be looked at. That we should try to take the copyright for the translation from the writer or the literary agency that is representing the writer. And I have found that usually they're very open to the fact that this is a very small market, and they cannot expect to be paid in hundreds of dollars. They charge a very nominal fee if they understanding our situation, that books are, I'm going to be publishing 500 copies or 1,000 copies of a book, which is you know so I think one should try and take as far as possible, take permission for the translations that we publish.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my last question, और मैं फ़ायदा उठा रही हूँ आपसे बात करने का क्योंकि ये पब्लिशिंग रिलेटेड सवाल है. वी हैव अ पैनल ऑन पाकिस्तानी पब्लिशिंग, मगर मैं इनोवेशन के ऊपर आ रही हूँ कि आजकल के ज़माने के अंदर एंड एंड मुझे तो हाथ में किताब पढ़ने का वो जो एक लाइब्रेरी में जाके लाइब्रेरी का जो एटमॉस्फेयर है, किताबों की खुशबू और वो फील, तो वो तो अब एक एस्पेक्ट है. लेकिन अब जो बच्चे आ रहे हैं जो कि अपने PS4 में कॉन्सर्ट भी देख रहे हो, अपने गेमिंग के अंदर ही उनका पूरा एक वो मेटावर्स है जिसके अंदर वो अपना खेल भी रहे हैं और मिल भी रहे हैं दोस्तों से. इसके अंदर ऑडियो बुक्स हैं और तो तो हम अ, या आप एज अ पाकिस्तानी पब्लिशर इसको कैसे, क्योंकि इससे किताबों की और जो प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है लिटरेचर उसकी फ़रोग ही एट द एंड ऑफ द डे हो रही है. और जैसे ज़माना आगे जा रहा है तो वो हर इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन के अंदर इंसान को अडॉप्ट और अडेप्ट दोनों चीज़ें करनी है. तो उसमें पाकिस्तानी पब्लिशिंग कहाँ खड़ी हुई है और क्या विजन होना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये चीज़ें इंपॉर्टेंट हैं अडेप्ट करने के लिए या अडॉप्ट करने के लिए. तो आप इस पे क्या कहेंगी?
सबीन, बिल्कुल मैं समझती हूँ कि वक्त के साथ चलना चाहिए, पीछे नहीं रहना चाहिए. और हम, क्योंकि मैं जिस जनरेशन से हूँ, हम थोड़ा इतने टेक्निकली savvy भी नहीं थे. हमें बहुत कुछ हमने सीखा कोविड के ज़माने में कि कितना ज़रूरी है वक्त के साथ चलना. जो हमारे बाद आया है जनरेशन पब्लिशिंग में, वो हमसे कहीं ज़्यादा आगे निकल गया है ऑनलाइन सेल्स में और दूसरी चीज़ों में. लेकिन ई बुक्स का जहाँ तक ताल्लुक है, ई बुक्स में यहाँ, क्योंकि अनफॉर्चुनेटली पाकिस्तान में अमेज़ॉन का नहीं है कोई सिलसिला, तो ई बुक्स के लिए यहाँ एक प्लेटफॉर्म कुछ साल पहले बना, बल्कि कोविड के ज़माने में ही शुरू हुआ, लिटिल बुक कंपनी के नाम से, जो मनीज़ा नकवी साहिबा ने यहाँ शुरू किया. तो हम पहले पब्लिशर थे जिन्होंने अपनी किताबें उनको दी ई बुक उस पे डालने. अब ये वो अपने अभी भी बहुत इनिशियल स्टेजेस में है और अभी भी उस पे सेल्स बहुत कम है, क्योंकि हमारे जो पढ़ने वाले हैं उनको अभी तक आदत नहीं हुई है ई बुक्स की, जो उर्दू पढ़ने वाले हैं. और उनको एक्चुअली प्लेटफॉर्म पे भी कुछ टेक्निकल ग्लिचेस शुरू में आते रहे, और फिर लोगों को समझने में भी मुश्किल हो रही है कि लोगों को लगता है कि हमें पीडीएफ क्यों नहीं मिल सकता है, उनको ये नहीं समझ आता कि ये पीडीएफ नहीं है. You have to just download. You can't download it, or you can't share it, you can't print it out. You can only read it on your screen. तो वो चीज़ थोड़ा सा अभी लोगों की आदत नहीं हुई है, तो इसलिए इतनी कोई ऐसी बहुत उसमें अभी सेल्स नहीं हो रही बुक्स की. लेकिन दैट इज़ द वे टू मूव फॉरवर्ड. अब और दूसरे पब्लिशर्स भी अब इसकी तरफ राग़िब हो गए हैं कि वो अपनी बुक्स बनाएं. तो एक तो वो चीज़ है, लेकिन उससे ज़्यादा एक्साइटिंग मुझे लगता है ऑडियो बुक्स. आई थिंक द फ्यूचर इज़ इन ऑडियो बुक्स, क्योंकि
जी.
दैट इज अनदर लीप फॉरवर्ड फ्रॉम ई बुक्स. मैं देखती हूँ कि ऑडियो बुक्स, मेरे बहुत से ऐसे दोस्त हैं दुनिया में, जैसे रूस में, मॉस्को में मैं गई थी, तो मेरी दोस्त जो थी, वो, मैंने कहा, तुम व्हाई डू यू लिसन टू द बुक इंस्टेड ऑफ. शी सेड, I'm working in the kitchen, I'm driving, I can just listen to it. I don't need to sit down somewhere and read the book, because I can be on the go. And so I think audiobooks is a very exciting thing. So far, it is quite an expensive proposition to make an audiobook, to have a proper studio, to have someone recording. But things are progressing so fast, especially with artificial intelligence coming into it. And
Exactly.
already with English books, they're doing wonderfully. They've even regulated the voice modulation and all that. So it doesn't, now it, my friend who does a lot of listening to audiobooks tells me that the books in English now have voice modulation, which is so good that you can't tell it's an electronic voice. There's,
जी जी, absolutely.
proper all that. So, अगर उस तरफ उर्दू भी बढ़े, so it would, I think it would just be amazing, and we shouldn't be scared of technology. We will always love having a book in the hand. We will always love the smell of paper. It is, we will always want to have a library with books surrounding us. But considering the cost of producing a book, considering what goes into making paper and how the ecology of our planet is, I think we should seriously consider ebooks and audiobooks.
एब्सोल्युटली, क्योंकि वो सस्टेनेबिलिटी का भी एलिमेंट आता है.
जी,
And especially for audiobooks, I would also say that it works, it's very inclusive as well. If somebody is, has some sort of disability,
एग्जैक्टली.
तो आप उस चीज को भी कवर कर रहे हैं.
जी,
तो
जी,
और किसी को क्या पता, somebody is, you know you पढ़ नहीं सकता, उर्दू नहीं पढ़ सकता या अंग्रेजी नहीं पढ़ सकता, तो लिसनिंग टू अ बुक, वो भी तो एक बहुत बड़ी लर्निंग है. सो इट
बिल्कुल.
तो और इन द लॉन्ग रन आई थिंक इट वुड ऑल्सो मेक बिजनेस सेंस जब आपका सस्टेनेबल प्रैक्टिसेस होंगे, with the cost of paper. I was publishing this my special edition, जो मैंने निकाला अभी 10 साल हुए हैं अनानके को. तो एंड आई एम प्रमोटिंग द मैगजीन, दिखाने का. तो उसके अंदर आई आई स्पोक टू अ कपल ऑफ पीपल इन पाकिस्तान अबाउट पब्लिशिंग इट पेपर, ये सब इन चीज़ों के बारे में रिसर्च अपना लेग वर्क किया है. And then I did my legwork here as well, and the cost of getting the magazine published here was, मतलब जमीन आसमान का फर्क है.
या बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल.
And I was thinking, no, it's the UAE, it's Dubai, paper would be expensive, printing would be expensive, but I was amazed कि कोई कंपैरिजन ही नहीं है अगर आप पाकिस्तान में प्रिंट कर रहे हैं, which is
बिल्कुल,
sad.
पाकिस्तान में तो बहुत ही महंगा है, सब चीज महंगी है. और ऑल्सो प्रिंट रन्स इतने लो हैं किताबों के,
Exactly.
सो दैट जस्ट मेक्स इट एक्सट्रीमली कॉस्टली.
Exactly.
एंड आई रियली डोंट नो हाउ टू प्राइस बुक्स नाउ. क्योंकि देखें, बुक सेलर्स भी हमसे 50%,
True. True.
55%, 60% डिस्काउंट भी मांग लेते हैं. तो for the reader to understand, and then they अब वो फिर आगे भी रीडर को भी वो 50% तक डिस्काउंट दे देते हैं. तो अब रीडर भी हमसे बहस करता है. उनको ये नहीं समझ आता है कि उतनी ही महंगी होगी किताब, कि
जी.
डिस्काउंट हम अपनी जेब से तो नहीं दे रहे हैं, हमें भी
True.
चलाना है, हमारे ओवरहेड्स हैं. तो it's just mind boggling. It's
Absolutely.
a very difficult industry to survive in if you're not doing textbooks, if you're not doing stationery, if you're not doing religious books. With just general books, being an independent publisher is a heartbreaking job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hoori, for this wonderful conversation. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका. The your journey, talking about your journey, and talking about these, thinkers, जिनके बारे में लोगों को पता होना चाहिए. पता है मगर for a global audience वो फिर भी नहीं पता. So I'm so glad that we spoke about, Sibte Hassan Nasir, so many, of these amazing progressive people जो कि आए हैं. And I hope कि अगली जनरेशन को भी ऐसे अच्छे सोचने वाले, सिंपली पुट अच्छे सोचने वाले मिले, आप लोग जैसे इंस्पायरिंग खवातीन मिले, so that moving ahead we do something impactful as well. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you so much for having me on your platform. And congratulations for 10 years of Ananke, and continue the good work. Always have my blessings
Thank you so much. Blessings uh,
and
uh,
cooperation in any
yes, yes,
way.
definitely, definitely. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Bye bye.